Good morning, Mets fans, and welcome to a Thursday edition of Driving with Mr. Met. You know, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to record a video today. I did take the day off, but I forgot about the fact that my daughter has Girl Scout camp this week, so I dropped her off just now, and perfect opportunity for me to talk about a win. Yes, a win. The Mets got a much-needed win. If Keith were in the booth, he would have called it a laugher. It was a fun game because it was all Mets. And those games have been few and far between this year, especially when you consider how well Steven Matz pitched in the game. It was nice to see some dominant starting pitching from someone other than Jacob deGrom. So Matz was really good on the mound. The defense was really good behind him, which was another sight for sore eyes. And Curtis Granderson continues to be the Mets' hottest hitter. So Grandy is red hot. He's batting something like 400 or close to it over the last 2 weeks. He has another home run. I think it's his 5th home run in the last week. His batting average over the last week is like 340. He's just been on fire. He's been the very hot Curtis Granderson that has reared his head in previous seasons with the Mets. And this is the sort of stretch that leads to him having, at the end of the year, what looks to be a very productive season. You know, he's on pace to, if he continues this, approach that 30 home run plateau again. And, you know, that's what Curtis has consistently done. He's one of those consistently inconsistent sort of guys who, when he's on for a good chunk of time, but it always takes him a while to get there. And that's the only negative that I can think about when it comes to Curtis Granderson. It was kind of cool last night in the game when Gelbsy started talking about Grandy's bat. A year or two ago, my brother and I actually donated some money to a really good cause. A friend of ours, Greg Foley, his daughter, he had a fundraiser for his daughter. And we actually ended up bidding on and winning a authentic signed Curtis Granderson bat. And so when Gelbsy's talking about Curtis's bat and they did the close-ups on it and stuff, I actually went and looked at the bat, and it was the same. That was kind of cool. So this is a very Grandy-centric conversation, but I'm really pleased with how Curtis is doing. He's one of the best, if not the absolute best, people and human beings in the game. And it's just nice to see him not kind of fizzling away to nothing, where I think a month ago, and I've said this before, if you'd asked any Met fan, everyone would have said, he's done, he's finished. Curtis is never going to be the same again. He's never going to be the player that he used to be. And turns out he was just off to a little bit longer of a slow start than usual. I also want to mention something that Gary and Ronnie talked about last night. And they were talking about Travis d'Arnaud, specifically about his performance over his career against the Marlins. So I like to talk about, and Mets Twitter likes to talk about, Met killers. And there's a lot of them, and there have been a lot of them over the years. And it always seems like there are Marlins who are Met killers. I always think back to Gabby Sanchez, the first baseman, who I think was like a career 220 or 230 hitter, but he hit like something around 400 against the Mets throughout his career. And that's sort of like the most annoying thing ever, because when the guy sucks every time that he's not playing the Mets, but then he's great against the Mets, it just like makes you scratch your head. And we have that scenario with Travis d'Arnaud, apparently. d'Arnaud owns like a 350 or 360 career batting average against the Marlins, which I think is hysterical, because he, like a lot of Met killers, Travis the Marlin killer, does not have numbers anywhere near that throughout his career as a Met. So I wanted to point that out, and I thought it was great that Gary and Ronnie pointed that out too. Other thing I'll touch on is Steven Matz. Steven Matz, as I said, was really good last night, and he was helped out tremendously by his infield defense. For all of the complaining and carrying on and the drama surrounding this story last week, Asdrubal Cabrera's move to second base has almost like rejuvenated him. He looks like a different player. He's more fluid in the field. He seems to have better range at second base, And offensively, he's been better too. So I think going into it, he was clearly apprehensive about it. But if you asked him to do it over again, I suspect he wouldn't say a word, because he's having a nice little stretch here since he's come off the DL and has been a second baseman. If nothing else, it adds value to Asdrubal Cabrera, because he is going to be a free agent. The Mets do have an option on him for next year, but I can't see them taking that option and selecting that option, rather. I'd see them letting him walk, and if he can play second base as well, it only adds value for him for his next contract. So I mentioned that I thought this Marlins series was going to be important, and the opening game was disappointing, but really up until the 8th inning, it was a good game. It really was a good game. Last night's game was in favor of the Mets, start to finish. Tonight is the rubber match, and it's a big game, and Seth Lugo's on the hill for the Mets. And I think that tonight's game, I know it's just one game, but this one game could be really important in determining what happens with this team going forward. If the Mets can win this series against the Marlins, end up with a 5-5 road trip, when you consider that 4 of those losses were in an abysmal series against the Dodgers, that's really not that bad. And I think that the Mets can take that and build upon it. And it's to the point now where they have to start winning every series. They really cannot afford to drop a series. And to a team that is not winning, the Marlins, really in the same boat as the Mets, and they can be saying the exact same thing on Driving with Mr. Marlin. But the point here is that the Mets, if they really want to make a run this season, it's got to start tonight. It's got to start with closing out this series with the Marlins and Seth Lugo on the hill to do that. So that's going to be all for today. I went on a little bit longer than I would have liked to, but I don't know. I got Curtis Granderson's long home runs on the brain, so that might be the excuse. But I appreciate you watching the video. If you're not already following me on Twitter, please do so at Mr_Met. That's Mr. M-I-S-T-E-R. Spell it out. Not soft, S-A-W-F-T, but M-I-S-T-E-R. Mr_Met on Twitter. And as always, let's go Mets.